Hey Fromily, it's Julie B. Deep Dives, and today I'm diving into the mind-blowing season finale of From Season 3. The showrunners promised us that this season, the true nature of the town would start to come into focus, and that we'd get answers, but also more questions. They delivered on those promises in epic fashion by the end, in the second episode of a two-parter fittingly titled Revelations. This is not a recap. It's part one of my deep dive into the finale, where I'll break down my biggest takeaways and theories with predictions for the future of these characters and the show, because this finale is going to change everything. This video will explore the implications of Boyd taking extreme measures to learn Fatima's whereabouts from Elgin, and what it means to break Boyd. Fatima delivering Smiley himself instead of a baby, and the continuing mystery of Eloise's fate. The overall theme woven into the finale was knowledge comes with a cost. So listen on for more, but be prepared to pay with your very sanity, because this finale has me more obsessed than ever with this amazing show. So without further ado, let's get into it. Season 3 is all wrapped up, and the overarching theme, while it may not always have been obvious, was breaking Boyd. We had 2 nighttime ambushes by the nightmare creatures with diabolical new tactics aimed at breaking him. Boyd was put in an impossible situation both times. In the first case, he let Tan Chen put her life at risk to help save them from starvation, only to be forced to watch her die for nothing, because the very next day, more food showed up in the form of new crops that just randomly popped up. Then he had to choose between saving 3 people on an ambulance versus saving Randall alone, so he was forced to leave someone behind and left Randall, which went against the core of who he is. And once again, more mind games followed. Randall was left alive, with a huge scar on his face as a reminder to everyone that they aren't safe. Even in the daytime, they couldn't pretend that anymore. Thus, Fromville spent the season attacking Boyd through other people. Tian Chen, Randall, and of course Ellis and Fatima, with her pregnancy driving her to involuntary murder and leading to her disappearance. It all comes to a head in the finale, with Boyd struggling to get information out of Elgin about the whereabouts of Fatima. The voices in Sarah's head had sent him a message that she was alone and scared, and that they knew Boyd wouldn't be able to save her in time, and they were laughing. But here's the thing. That message, including the part about them laughing at him, I think that was a ploy to drive Boyd to do something out of desperation that would break him as a human being. I think Fatima may not actually have been in danger at all. At the end of the episode, she's left alone and unharmed by the kimono lady. But the voices wanted Boyd to believe that her life was at stake. They baited him. After he failed to protect Abby, he'll do anything to protect his family, including Fatima, even compromise his own deeply held morals. Enlisting Sarah and Kenny, Boyd interrogates Elgin and quickly learns that Elgin knows where Fatima is and that her pregnancy has progressed by a lot. This place seems to be exploiting Elgin's religious beliefs, as he believes the kimono lady is an angel, and that what's happening here is just beyond their ability to understand, like events in the Bible to the people in those stories who had to have faith. Fromville is great at finding whatever it can exploit in people to use them as tools, just like it did to Sarah. I think it exploited existing trauma that she brought with her to this place, and as she tells Elgin here, she learned the hard way that this place doesn't give, it takes. So, Boyd decides to torture Elgin for information. While he's in the shed gathering tools, Ghost Khatri appears to him and rightly points out Boyd's hypocrisy. He's willing to take such extreme measures against Elgin, but he'll look the other way when his own family member commits murder. Khatri tells him, "You said you weren't going to let this place break you, but if you do this, this place has won." What does it mean to break Boyd, anyway? It was Ghost Khatri who also said earlier this season that they want to break you means they want to change you. Boyd has always been Mr. Fish and Loaves, the person who turned everything around for the people of this place, allowing them to live again rather than just surviving, the person who everyone trusted and counted on. But this place has been systematically trying to erode the town's trust in him this season, and if they don't trust him, then he can't be effective at keeping them safe. It was already starting before this season, with the town not understanding why Boyd kept Sarah alive after what she did. But it got worse after Tian Chen died on his watch, quite literally, while he walked away unscathed. Boyd wasn't able to keep control of a chaotic town meeting when Tabitha came back, which led to Dale going through the lighthouse bottle tree and winding up sealed in the wall of the pool, crushed to death, all because the town is losing faith in him. And later, after the creature inside Fatima compelled her to kill Tilly, Donna told Boyd that the people don't believe in him anymore like they did. This is how you break Boyd and harm the rest of the town by extension, because they rely on his leadership, and if they won't listen to him anymore, everyone will wind up suffering as a result, as he can't keep them safe. Now, I've never trusted any of the ghost entities, including Khatri, but he makes some good points in this scene. He also says, you need to decide right now who you are, because that's who you're going to be from now on. And he's right about that. Taking such a drastic step as torturing Elgin will change who he is and how everyone sees him from now on. It's possible that this is just the big bad in Khatri's form trying to protect Elgin, because Elgin is unwittingly working for the big bad right now. But I will say, this is the least suspicious I've ever found Ghost Khatri to be. So I'm keeping an open mind. Boyd tries to intimidate Elgin into giving up the truth, but it doesn't work. A picture then pops out of the Polaroid camera, and Elgin says he thinks the angel wants to talk to Boyd. It's a picture of Boyd's house, which Elgin believes is proof that they're going to be sent home. But the boat is missing, and Boyd isn't convinced. He seems to infer that it's not legit based on that. I think that the big bad can read people's minds, and it pulled the memory of Boyd's house from his head, but the boat was missing because he had never seen it before. His family hadn't given it to him yet. Boyd ultimately goes to the extreme of smashing Elgin's hand with a hammer until a bone is sticking out of it. Acosta then shows up and bursts in to stop him, as Kenny uses Acosta's first name, which we had never heard before, Danny. It's unclear if there's any significance to this name being withheld up to this point, as fans had been speculating. Boyd and the whole group go downstairs to argue, while Sarah slips away and takes matters into her own hands. Sarah tells Elgin that when they met, she thought he seemed so sweet and so kind, that she was like that once too. She says, I think maybe we're exactly what this place looks for, people who just want to help. And Sarah is right. This place does use people like her and Elgin, people who want to help. And I think it used Tilly in a similar way as well. In Tilly's case, not to actually cause harm, but just to get in Fatima's way. Tilly just wanted to help, to the point where she stayed close to Fatima no matter how dangerous it was to be around her. And I think Tilly was sent there for that purpose. Precisely to be the victim when the thing inside Fatima drove her to murder. The big bad needed to get Fatima to a place of isolation so that she'd be an easy target for Elgin to trick her into coming with him to hide. So they put Tilly right in her path, and this was the end result. The thing inside Fatima compelled her to murder, and she was isolated enough for Elgin to whisk her away. Stepping in for Boyd, Sarah says, this place has taken so much from him. I won't let it take his soul. I've already given it mine. She knows she's already irredeemable after taking people's lives, so she spares Boyd from sinking to the level that's necessary to get the information out of Elgin. Sarah gouges out one of Elgin's eyes and gives the group the information on where Fatima is in the root cellar. In a shocking turn of events. Elgin had been duped by the kimono lady, and for him, knowledge of the truth comes at a cost. To paraphrase the man in yellow, who later appears in this episode, it literally costs Elgin his eye. Acquisition of the knowledge of Fatima's whereabouts also comes at a cost. It would have cost Boyd his soul, as Sarah states, breaking his character morally. So she takes care of that cost for him and commits the heinous act herself, as this place has already cost Sarah her soul anyway. Meanwhile, Fatima tries to cut open her stomach with a shard of glass, but the kimono lady stops her and holds the glass up to Fatima's neck. Is it possible that the creature baby is vulnerable until it's born, so this process could have been halted? Maybe. I think the creature also needed to be born in the root cellar because it's underground and they can't come out in the daytime. Then Fatima's water breaks and the kimono lady delivers the creature, which is in a kind of a pod, as the hatch in the floor opens by itself, and the kimono lady carries the pod down there, leaving Fatima alone and unharmed. And Boyd, Ellis, and Kenny finally rush in. Again, I suspect that Fatima was never actually in any danger, since the kimono lady just left her alone there. The voices in Sarah's head had baited Boyd by laughing and saying Boyd wouldn't be able to get to her in time, but I think the point of it was to put him in yet another impossible situation, between a rock and a hard place, as Ghost Khatri puts it. So he does something desperate and loses more of the trust and faith of the people, effectively breaking him in that he'd be useless to lead everyone, broken as a leader. Thanks to Sarah, he doesn't go to such an extreme that it would totally break him, but what he does will definitely have repercussions next season when everyone finds out. Acosta will most certainly not keep this information to herself. Also, just as Boyd has finally made amends with Kenny, who agreed to be his deputy again, he's been lying to him again by not telling him that Fatima killed Tilly. Breaking that trust between them again could result in Kenny siding with Acosta, and there could be a leadership struggle next season with Acosta taking over as sheriff. But getting back to the pod that Fatima delivers, the kimono lady brings it down into the creature's cave, which is where the hatch leads. She kneels down with it as the creatures gather around, smiling, and the whole thing looks like a ritual that has probably happened before in past cycles. Out of the pod comes a full-grown Smiley creature, reborn, and before he peels off the red membrane hanging from him, he looks just like the red squid-like figure in the cave painting. My co-hosts Scarlett and Fromley Theory Channel have both pointed this out, and I think this is exactly what the red shape in the cave painting means. It's actually just this. It's not a literal red Cthulhu monster that's going to show up at some point. In an epic reveal, Smiley turns around and flashes his trademark grin as Boyd is hiding in the shadows and watching in horror. Now, I'm not concerned for Boyd making it out of the cave unscathed, though, because this is Bulletproof Boyd we're talking about after all. I think he's the one that has complete plot armor until the final episode of the entire series. So the mystery of where the monsters come from has finally been revealed. Fatima tells Ellis that she saw what the monsters did and what they are, that they sacrificed their children because it promised they would live forever. Apparently, birthing this creature gave her a vision in which she could see that. We just didn't actually get to see it as viewers, but we're told via exposition. This means that the creatures are actually the parents and loved ones of the Ankui children, who they sacrificed to gain immortality, but were tricked because this turned them into nightmare creatures, who are compelled to rip people apart and live forever as mindless tools of the big bad. The question is, what is this it that promised them they would live forever, as Fatima explains? She says, it promised them they would live forever. The answer might be the man in yellow, who is either the big bad or an entity working directly under the big bad. But more on that to come in part 2 of my deep dive, which will be coming soon. For Fatima, gaining the knowledge of the monster's origin comes at a cost for her. The cost is the trauma of her ordeal in carrying the Smiley pod, which forces her to murder Tilly against her will this season, and that will surely haunt her for the rest of her life. Not to mention the trauma of being kidnapped by Elgin and forced to give birth to this pod by the kimono lady. Fatima will most likely never be the same. So once again, knowledge comes with a cost. This theme continues through the finale. Also in the finale, in an emotional scene, we see Victor showing Henry where he had buried his mother with a painted stone marker. There's also a stone where he had buried another body that he says he thinks is Eloise, but there were only pieces left, and they were so small. So this leaves open the possibility that Eloise could still be alive out there somewhere. Perhaps she's a loner who was knocking at the cabins earlier this season, like I theorized about in my episode 1 breakdown. It's possible that Julie will even time travel back and help Eloise in some way, and that could finally explain what happened to her. The writers seem to be leaving her fate ambiguous for a reason, once again. For those who thought that the writers of this show don't know what they're doing or where they're going with all of this, take a look at what just happened here. The rebirth of Smiley and the reveal of the creature's immortality were clearly set up from the very start of Season 2. When Boyd was in the dream state and then received the bloodworms from Martin, we were led to believe that it was possible to kill the monsters, as Boyd killed Smiley here by passing along those bloodworms. But it was a masterful trick on both the characters and us, the audience. Smiley was always going to come back, inevitably. Fatima revealed her pregnancy in Season 2 around the time when Smiley died, and it sickened her more and more in Season 3. It compelled her to drink blood, giving us a hint that maybe the creatures really do eat people's organs, which always disappear after they're killed. But anyway, Elgin was clearly brought to town for the specific purpose of helping the kimono lady isolate Fatima and deliver the creature pod. He panicked when he first got to town in Season 2, seemingly recognizing this place after he had a premonition dream. I'm convinced that he saw what was going to happen to Fatima and to him in that dream, losing an eye, but he just forgot that part. There's no way that the boy in white reciting the cicada nursery rhyme, which Elgin later remembered, would have been enough to make him that terrified. He had such a visceral reaction that he panicked and threw up on the bus, begging the bus driver to turn around. Then he was uneasy about water and mentioned an aversion to blood on the night when Ellis was stabbed, and he ended up having to leave the room when Ellis was bleeding all over the place in the clinic. The kimono lady was introduced in Elgin's dream, pushing him under the water in the bathtub, which explains his uneasiness about water that he had since the premonition dream. And in Season 3, Kimono Lady instructed him to kidnap Fatima and draw his own blood for Fatima to drink, promising that her baby would enable everyone to go home. And of course, this culminated in Elgin losing an eye, so it's no wonder that he had an aversion to blood after his premonition dream, which I think probably showed him all of this, and that part was just forgotten. And now Smiley is back. What a way to reveal to us that the creatures are immortal. Instead of just telling us that, they showed us first. They showed us through this entire story arc. All of this was meticulously planned by the writers from Season 2 to the present. So that was part 1 of my deep dive into the Season 3 finale. And now I want to know what you think. Did you like the rebirth of Smiley and the revelation of the creature's immortality? What do you think about the origin story of Fremville, with the creatures sacrificing the Ankui children? And who or what do you think promised them they would live forever? How will people react to Boyd in Season 4 after the truth may come out about his cover-up of the murder of Tilly and his torture of Elgin? Do you think Eloise could still be alive? And if so, then where is she? Let me know all your thoughts and theories down in the comments. And stay tuned for part 2, in which I'll dive into Tabitha, Jade, Jim, and Julie's storylines in the finale, and more. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and until next time, keep on deep diving, and let's see what we can uncover together.